Hello, my lovely anatomists and physiologists. Michele Glass here. We are continuing our discussion of the cutaneous membrane, looking specifically at the dermis. So the dermis would be the innermost layer of the cutaneous membrane, which remember is our fancy name for skin. The the dermis is going to be vascularized, meaning it has blood vessels. It's going to be innervated, meaning that it has nervous supply. It's going to have lymph vessels. And so these are all really real important ways that the dermis is going to support the epidermis. We'll also see embedded in the dermis, it's going to, let's say in the support of the dermis, that it's also going to hold the hair follicle, sweat glands, and sebaceous glands. Okay. As we talk about the dermis, we'll see also that it's composed of connective tissue as opposed to the epithelial tissue of the epidermis. And then we'll see that the dermis itself can be divided up into two layers. We have the papillary layer, and then we have the reticular layer. And the papillary layer would be the more superficial, whereas reticular is deep. The papillary layer will form those dermal papillae. AE ending, remember, is plural. We mentioned those in our drawing of the epidermis. And we'll see that this includes loose areolar tissue, and it's going to contain fibroblasts, which are going to be important in repair. It's going to contain adipocytes. CYTE ending tells us cells, so these are going to be fat storage cells. And then we'll also see phagocytes in this layer here. So if pathogens do make their way all the way through the epidermis to this top layer of the dermis, we have some phagocytes at the ready to engulf those pathogens. And then when we talk about the reticular tissue, we'll see that it's the deeper tissue. It's going to be composed of dense, irregular connective tissue. Now, we didn't actually study the dense irregular connective tissue in our lab. The irregular tells us that those fibers are going to run in like multiple directions, because remember that skin can stretch and pull in lots of different directions. And so we need strength in each of those. The reticular layer is going to be highly vascularized. The reticular layer is also going to contain Meissner corpuscles, which are going to be important as touch receptors. Meissner corpuscles. So let's take a look at a drawing, and here I've just sort of edited and fine-tuned a little bit the drawing that I did of the epidermis in the earlier presentation. Remember, the epidermis, depending on whether it's thin or thick skin, will have 4 to 5 layers. And those layers are the stratum basale, spinosum, granulosum, lucidum, and corneum. And remember, the stratum basale is sitting on top of the dermis, where the stratum corneum is the outermost layer of the epidermis and the stratum basale is the innermost. When we look at the dermis, remember we're going to have the two layers. And so we're going to have this sort of top layer as the papillary layer, where these projections, finger-like projections sticking up, are going to be called, remember, dermal papilla. A is singular, AE ending, dermal papillae would be the plural form. And then underneath the reticular layer, we're going to get our, underneath the papillary layer, we're going to get our reticular layer. Now here you're going to see my drawing skills are really a little less than desirable. So what I'm going to illustrate next will be coming up through the reticular layer, up through the papillary layer, into those dermal papillae. We're going to have blood vessels. And so I'm just showing that with a red line here. And then here at the very top, I'm going to show like this would be a capillary. And so one of the significance of these dermal papillae are you're increasing the surface area between the dermis and the epidermis. So this is actually giving more blood supply to the epidermis than if it was two flat lines of tissue. The other benefit of these dermal papillae is it's a stronger connection. So kind of this interlocking between the epidermis and the dermis is a stronger connection versus, again, if you just have two flat layers of tissue on top of each other. So again, the significance of the dermal papillae of these ridges is that the significance is that you've increased your surface area and you've increased the strength of the connection between the dermis and the epidermis. And sticking up into those dermal papillae, you're going to have your blood vessels and your capillaries. We can show too our lymphatic vessels. Let me go ahead and label my blood vessel. And then I'm going to show in green lymphatic vessel sticking up in here. And we'll label our lymphatic vessel. And then I'm going to get a yellow marker to show kind of like my innervation up to that Merkel cell that I drew earlier. So really the significance of the dermis is that this is supporting structures of the epidermis by providing vascularization, by providing lymph vessels, by providing the innervation. We get all of the strong fibers, collagen, and stretchy elastic fibers in the connective tissues of the dermis to help support the epidermis. This is really then the job. If you notice at the very bottom of the dermis, I've drawn in a line representing the hypodermis or subcutaneous layer. Remember, this is a layer that's full of adipose tissue. It's dominated by adipose tissue. And we're going to talk more about that in the next video. So stay tuned. As always, take care of yourselves and each other.